Hi pen friends, this is Sarah. So recently, another Sarah, the one that creates the YouTube channel Ginger Peachy Pens, created a tag which was to tell people what your favorite ink from 10 different color categories are. And so I'm going to do that tag. However, Sarah said it was fine if you change the categories a little bit, and I am actually just going to show you 9 different inks because I like to swatch my inks in a grid shape. And then for each ink that I swatch, I am going to tag another YouTube channel, and I will write the name of that channel with each of these pens. Each one has a different color for my rainbow. So the name of this tag is Ink Rainbow 23, and I encourage everyone to share what their favorite inks are. So even if I don't tag you, please make a video or leave a comment about what your favorite inks are. Alright, so I'm gonna move my pens away so that we can swatch the inks first. So when Sarah of Ginger Peachy Pens swatched her inks, she likes a lot of bright colors. I don't really write with a lot of bright colors, so my rainbow is going to be a bit muted. And the first color category is pink, and for that one I chose Taccia Utamaro-UmeMurasaki, and I looked up what those words ume and murasaki mean in Japanese, and it said ume is plum and murasaki is purple. So you might not count it as a pink, but to my eye, this ink is really more of a dusty, like pink or brown pink. So that's what I chose for my pink, because I don't generally use a lot of bright pinks. It's going on very, very brown at first, but you can see like an undertone of pink. And I don't know if this one would be considered like a chroma shading ink, but it's got a lot of complexity to it, which is one of the reasons that I love it, and it's a very interesting color. You can see the pink in the lighter areas there. It's really pretty. And I have UmeMurasaki in this pen, which is a Sailor King of Pen, and the color is called Mozaique Brown. It's, I think, a vintage pen. I bought it used. It's a beautiful pen. It's got, I think, number 8 sized 21 karat gold nib. And so the first channel that I'm going to tag is Zen and Ink. So Zen and Ink is a painter, a singer. She creates beautiful journals. I love hearing about her life when she, you know, is showing her journals, and I highly recommend her channel. All right, and even if they decide, even if the people that I tag decide not to do a rainbow of ink, I still suggest checking out their channels. That's why I'm tagging them, just so that to let you know about these channels in case you haven't seen them before. All right, the next ink I'm doing for my red is Diamine Cherry Sunburst, and you know, cherry is a red, but this ink is a very brown red. I think that it's in the guitar series, which were like the different colors of guitars so this is more of like a cherry wood, but I'm still counting it as my red because I really don't use red inks all that much. Sometimes I use them for like a note or for a card or something like that, but I don't generally write a whole page with red ink. But I do love, love, love this ink. So I'm going to count that as my red. And I have that ink in this Stipula Brunelleschi, which I think the color of the pen, this is celluloid, it goes really well with that ink. And this is one of my favorite pens. It writes really well. This is a 18 karat gold medium nib. And the next channel that I'm going to tag is Tadashi Buyers. Now, Tadashi makes videos every once in a while. He doesn't make them that regularly, but when he does, I think they are fantastic. He puts a ton of effort into his videos, and I find them so interesting. He'll like make a painting and tell you a story and tell you about his inks and pens, and I find it fascinating, so I really highly recommend checking out his channel. I think probably a lot of you haven't heard of him because I don't see that he has a lot of subscribers right now, but I think like he's the most underrated channel, so check him out. Alright, my next color category is orange, and for that I chose Iroshizuku Yu-yake. And I found out recently that Iroshizuku inks are not great for vintage fountain pens with sacks because they're too alkaline, I think. Anyways, they will melt the sack of your pen, so don't use it in a pen with a sack. But I bet a lot of you have used Iroshizuku inks before, and you know that they work really well in a lot of fountain pens. They flow really well. They have beautiful shading. If you're using it in a modern pen with like a converter or a piston, then you don't have anything to worry about. And it's just such a beautiful orange. I have it in this Sheaffer Legacy 2 pen that Pickwick Turtle, she has a channel on YouTube. She traded me some of my fountain pen stuff for this pen, and it was an excellent trade for me. I hope it was a good trade for her too. This has a 18 karat gold nib, and it's a really smooth, juicy writer. That inlaid nib is beautiful, and it has a really nice weight to it. And if you haven't seen her channel, Pickwick Turtle, you should check it out, but I don't think she's doing fountain pen videos anymore, so I'm not going to tag her, but if she wants to do a video on this, that'd be great. Who I am going to tag is Fountain Pens and Inks. Oops. So, Fountain Pens and Inks is a channel by Jane, and she is a really kind person who will answer any of the questions that you have, and she has an amazing collection of pens, and she tends to enjoy pens that are a lot brighter colors than the ones I have in my collection, but they have like a lot of patterns in the materials most of the time, and I just love seeing her collection of pens. If I sort of have a focus on celluloid pens and in like natural kind of darker colors, but if I were to have another collection of like bright pattern pens, I would go the route that she's gone. So I just love watching her channel and seeing her pens, and so I suggest checking out her channel. All right, the next color category is yellow. So I've always said I don't really have yellow inks. I prefer to write with really legible darker colors, but Gamboge, I looked up in the dictionary what it actually means, and it means yellow. So even though this might look like a brown ink, you might consider it to be a yellowish brown, I'm going to use it as my yellow. And this is from Birmingham Pen Company. Their inks tend to be pretty wet. They flow really well. Sometimes they feather. That's the only problem that I've had with them before. I'm getting kind of a lot of bubbles when I'm swatching. I think that's because I just washed out I just washed out my brushes, and maybe there's a tiny bit of soap left in there. I'm sorry. I'm hoping that it doesn't seem to have affected these colors too much, so hopefully it'll be fine. But I want to show you something interesting. I have a paper towel over here, and I laid down my brush on there, and you can see the really interesting chromatography of this ink. It's like bright green on the edges, and that, orangey yellow brown in the middle. That's neat, isn't it? So yeah, this is a really nice color, and I have it in this Montegrappa Elmo Bassano, and I think it matches that really well. Eve always calls this my caramel pen because it looks like pieces of caramel in it. All right, so now I'm going to tag South Shore paper. We're having solar panels put on our house, and I just heard my doorbell, so I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. Sorry about that. So South Shore paper has an aesthetic that's very similar to mine. We both love green inks. We both love nature. I love hearing her talk about, how she loves the colors of the sea and of the desert, and I think that, I look to her channel to see what inks she's using because we have similar taste in inks. So check out her channel. All right. The next color category is green, which I just said is my favorite category of ink. And I couldn't limit myself to just one green. So I've got two greens in mine. It was even hard for me to limit myself to two. So I chose sort of a yellowish green and a more bluish green, and the more yellowy green is Robert Oster bronze. This one is kind of like a chroma shading ink too. It's sort of brownish. You see browns and greens. It's really a beautiful ink, and I love seeing it in like a broad nib just to see all the variation in the color. This one might be my favorite ink in my entire collection, but it does sort of like tend to dry out in pens pretty quickly, I find. I don't know if anyone else has that happen. So it doesn't actually work well in all of my pens. But it does, I put it in a MontBlanc Franz Kafka, and this pen is in part of the Writers series, but it's a more subtle one, and it's only one that uses a cartridge converter instead of a piston inside. I like the tiny logo up there. It's like, I don't know, and it's got the sterling silver. It's supposed to look like, you know, aspects of like a roach or something from the book The Metamorphosis, and it's got the roach on or the beetle or whatever it is on the nib, which is a cool detail. And let's see, yeah, this is a nice wet writer, so I think it works well with Robert Oster bronze. And it looks kind of like a black pen, but it's actually translucent red, like really dark red, which is neat. All right, so now I'm going to tag gills, bookish, things, and I know that Donna of South Shore Paper and Gail's Bookish Things are friends, so it's nice to have them right next to each other there. And Gail, she has some beautiful journals as well. I love hearing about, you know, all the trading of stationery things that she does with her friends, and, you know, her the journaling she does about her family, and she's a very kind person, so I recommend her channel. All right, so now we're on to the more bluish green. And that one I chose Birmingham Summersweet. This is one of the most recent inks that I've purchased, and I think I'm going to get some more because this, like these two greens, you know, greens are my favorite inks, and these two are my favorites of my greens, so that's saying a lot because about half the inks in my collection are greens. And I was really excited to find this one because it is kind of going to be a replacement for me for Colorverse Green Goddess, which is also a beautiful ink, but it's a little bit more expensive. It comes in really small bottles, and so I find this one to be a little bit more convenient. And it's just a really pretty shade of green. I tend to like inks that have good shading, and this one does. And of course the Birmingham inks flow really well. And I think this is a really nice, like, you know, I could use this ink a lot. It's just a really good shade of green for me. And I have Summersweet in this Stipula small Etruria. This is a smaller size than their standard Etruria, and it's got sterling silver clip and band there, and a 18 karat gold fine nib. And so now I'm going to tag PEI Pen Guy. So PEI stands for Prince Edward Island, and PEI Pen Guy has a son that does videos with him, and it's the channel that is most like my channel because I do videos with my daughter, and I find that his son reminds me a lot of my daughter, and I just love hearing them interact on their channel and all of the interesting different topics that they come up with to talk about. They do pens and inks and even like, you know, other hobbies that they're into. And PEI Pen Guy is an artist like myself. I love looking at his paintings and hearing about what he's up to. So I recommend checking out his channel. Alright, and they just have a lot of fun on their channel. It inspires me because I want to have as much fun as they have. Okay, Monteverde Iced Cookie is what I chose for my blue. You might consider this a teal. In Ginger Peachy Pen's video, she said, well, she did a green, a teal, and a blue, but instead of that, I'm going to do 2 greens and a tealish blue. I don't generally like blue inks that don't lean green at all. I just love green more than blue, so most of my blues tend to be a little bit green. Alright. And Monteverde inks flow really well too. I've heard differing opinions on whether Monteverde inks are good inks, but all of the ones that I've tried have been excellent. And, you know, sometimes there are these deals where if you buy something on a website, you get like a free Monteverde ink, and that might be how I got into Monteverde inks, but you know, since I tried them, I you know, have been leveling up to the bigger bottles of them because I used up my smaller bottles and I just wanted to have more of that color. So there are certain inks that if a pen isn't working right, I try that ink in it, and this is one of them because I find that Iced Cookie works well in a lot of my pens. But the one that I have it in right now is this Omas Art Deco prototype. It's a black guilloche, which means that it has like a texture to it, and these lines are like, you can see the texture with the light shining off of it there. Okay, and this pen has an 18 karat gold fine nib. So I'm going to tag Wasky Squirrel. You've probably heard of Wasky Squirrel. He has a very large following on YouTube, and he's probably like one of the first channels that I subscribed to, and I've been pen pals with him for a long time, and he is very wonderful about sending letters back. Like I tend to take a long time between letters. I get busy and I don't have time to write, but somehow Wasky Squirrel makes time for all of his pen friends, and I really appreciate that. And if you're into vintage pens, he shows a lot of vintage pens. He has all different kinds of pens, but he's really gotten into the vintage ones lately, and he also is into gardening, which is something he shows around this time of year sometimes, and you know, he has a lot of things to say about society, which I appreciate. So if you haven't checked out his channel, you should do it. Alright, now the next color category is Noodler's Violet, and I mean, not the category isn't Noodler's Violet, it's purple, but I chose Noodler's Violet. So Noodler's is a controversial brand because there are so many inks that Noodler's makes, and some of them don't work that well with fountain pens. But if you stick to the colors that have the simplest names, like Noodler's Green, Noodler's Violet, Noodler's Black, like the very simple names for the inks, I think indicate that they are kind of basic, but also they're very beautiful, and they don't have those properties that might mess up your pens. So I've found that some Noodler's inks, if they're like waterproof, they can really get stuck in my pen, really hard to wash out. but this Noodler's Violet I trust with any of my pens, and it's a really pretty color, and it works well in like lots of different pens, you know, fine nibs, broad nibs. It looks great in all of them. And I have it in this Stipula Faceted Etruria with the Tortoise material. This is a beautiful shape of pen with all these facets, and it's got a 14 karat gold Styflex nib, which I highly recommend. They're great nibs. And I'm going to tag Zia Wool's Studio Buzz. So Zia Wool's as one word, space Studio Buzz is one word. And so Dagmar has this channel, and she has become a really good friend of mine, and I have exchanged some letters with her. She also makes amazing knitted items and bags. She has a website where she sells those things, and she is the nicest person, and very, very talented. I'm very inspired when I see all the projects that she does. She's constantly making things, and I find that really inspiring. And she's just like a very happy, laid-back person, and I want to be like that. So I recommend her channel. It's not all pens and inks, but she does, if you look for the paper dag ones, those are her pen and ink ones, and then she's got her knitting ones that she does more frequently. All right, and then for my last ink, which is in Ginger Peachy Pens, chose a magenta. Mine is more of a fuchsia, I guess. I chose Rohrer and Klingner Solferino, which has been one of my favorite inks for a long, long time. And I don't really use it all that much, but when I do, it makes me really happy because it is such a bright, happy color. And, you know, if you wrote a whole page with this, it would probably be a little hard on the eyes, but just for like, you know, a note or something, it's so beautiful. So Solferino is actually a place, a town in Italy, and similar to magenta, which is a place, or actually magenta was a battle. They used to name colors after battles. So there was a battle in magenta, they named the color magenta. Then there was a battle in Solferino, and they named a color Solferino. It was kind of like advertising for the color. But this is a pretty intense color. It looks like a very vibrant orchid, or, you know, you can find this color in nature. It's really amazing. Okay, and that bright, bright color I have in a more subtle pen. This is the Kaweco Student. I guess the only pen with a steel nib that I have with me now. It's got a fine steel nib, and it's got a metal grip, which isn't my favorite, but one thing I love about this pen is how smoothly the cap twists on, and also the Kaweco nibs are really good. Alright, so the last person that I'm going to tag is Gadget Stop 321. You've probably seen her videos. She has been making videos for a long time, and she's like the most scientific, I feel, about testing inks, which is amazing. She uses like a bunch of different, you know, width nibs from extra fine to broad to test her inks, and she's very methodical about it. And you know, she does a lot of experimentation, and I love how she just like keeps on experimenting and trying out new things. And she's also a very nice person that I've gotten to know over YouTube. So I suggest checking out her channel. So here is my rainbow. And I think the colors actually look pretty good together. I am seeing a lot of like these little dots within the ink, which might be those little soap bubbles, but I think the colors are looking pretty accurate. Hopefully you can see them. I don't have all that much sun today. But why don't I take this out and show it a little bit closer. So none of my favorite inks have, like most of them are really good shaders, and I'll turn it towards the window a little bit so you can see. A lot of them, you know, they go from dark to light. They're like gentle, kind of natural colors, and I really love using these. I mean, most of my pens are inked up with greens, but I think for, you know, a variety of colors, this is pretty nice. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope that you share what your favorite colors, inks in each color group are. Thanks for joining me. And also I wanted to mention that in my last video, the last video I uploaded a few days ago, YouTube took down the comments for no reason 2 times, and I didn't really notice it the second time until today. So I always love to get comments on my videos. So if any of you haven't seen that video yet and would like to watch it and maybe leave me a comment, that would be awesome. If you already saw it and wanted to leave a comment but couldn't, if you would go back and leave me a comment, that would be awesome, because the comments are really what keep me going, you know, like otherwise it's as if I'm talking to myself, which I am right now, but I feel like making videos is kind of like being part of a pen club, and this is how we like are able to find each other across, you know, all over the world. So thank you for watching the video and for any comments that you leave me. Bye, pen friends!